Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD. The condition, previously known more simply as just ADD, has in the past mostly been detected in children rather than in grown-ups. But although it does date back invariably to a person's childhood, we are becoming increasingly aware of its prevalence amongst adults. This video sets out to provide a brief overview of adult ADHD, its nature and its treatment. It looks at the symptoms of adult ADHD, why adults with ADHD frequently go undiagnosed, what it is like to live with adult ADHD, medication, treatment and support options, and some thoughts on managing the condition. Diagnostically, a person with ADHD can be either inattentive or impulsive and hyperactive, or a combination of these. This being the case, adult ADHD can present a number of symptoms that might include difficulty in concentrating and staying focused, being disorganized and forgetful, showing hyperactive or impulsive behavior, and having emotional difficulties. So let's take a moment to look just a little more closely at each of these primary ADHD symptoms. Problems with paying attention can sometimes be noticed in a person's lack of punctuality, or in the way he or she may seem to be disorganized, forgetful, and unable to listen to others. Referring to it as attention deficit is perhaps something of a misnomer, inasmuch as it does not impair the ability to focus, so much as the ability to control what it is that it is being focused on. For this reason, many people with ADHD can find it difficult to start, stick to, and/or finish a task. Then, in contrast, the symptom of impulsivity may be reflected in a person's unpredictable, often risky behavior, in his or her lack of patience, and in a habit of interrupting during conversations. Such a person may all too frequently change sexual partners, change jobs, or start a new business on just a whim. Along with these symptoms may come the one of hyperactivity. Usually people with ADHD tend to be hyperactive internally rather than overtly hyperactive. Either way, it can manifest as restlessness, fidgeting, and a person not being able to sit still for extended periods of time. This trait can cause real difficulty when studying, when at work, or even just while watching television or a movie. There's a strong tendency for people with ADHD to be self-critical, to fear coming across as being needy, and to be reluctant to ask for help. For these and for other reasons, the majority of the estimated 5% of the population that have the disorder do not ever get diagnosed. Instead, most struggle all their lives with unrecognized symptoms, or with symptoms that are generally assumed to be either the result of their own shortcomings or the result of other disorders such as substance abuse, chronic anxiety, or depression that does not respond to treatment. This is partly because ADHD frequently does overlap with one or more learning disorder or disability or condition, such as dyslexia, depression, anxiety, oppositional defiant disorder, or obsessive-compulsive disorder. In fact, it's been reported that a person with ADHD is 6 times more likely than most to have another psychiatric or learning disorder. But even without these additional difficulties, undiagnosed ADHD can have a devastating effect on every aspect of a person's life. It can be at the root of work, financial, career, and relationship troubles, and can manifest in health issues, both physical and mental. Just on a purely emotional level, the person might become easily stressed and develop a hypersensitivity to criticism, feel a sense of insecurity, and experience low self-esteem and isolation. Despite all of this, many people with ADHD have been successful in life. Perhaps because they often find structured formal employment challenging, and because they're prepared to take more risks than most, a good many end up as entrepreneurs. Certainly, most at least seem resilient in the face of the difficulties they invariably experience, and there are even those that go so far as to say the condition provides them with something of a superpower. Perhaps it is because being hyperactive and impulsive is arguably on the flip side of being energetic and creative, that so many do display copious amounts of energy, creativity, and intuition, not to mention the ability to hyperfocus under certain circumstances. And there are indeed inspiring stories to support the very real possibility of success, even exceptional success. Eminent people having or suspected of having had ADHD have included the likes of Mozart, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, Robin Williams, Michael Phelps, will.i.am and Justin Timberlake, to mention but a few. Because ADHD is arguably the most treatable condition in psychiatry, it's advisable that a person who suspects he or she might be affected by it start by seeking a formal clinical diagnosis. It really is worth doing this, even if the process of obtaining it is not exactly straightforward, as can sometimes be the case depending on where one lives. Should it then turn out that our person does in fact have ADHD, such an official diagnosis will be beneficial, not least in the accessing of whatever treatments may be available locally, but also for the clarity and insight it might open up to him or her. In some cases, it might go on to provide such practical applications as having special provisions made while in education or at a place of work, but due consideration should perhaps first be given to the need, merits or otherwise, of disclosing the condition to those in positions of influence or power. Either way, after perhaps a lifetime of having the condition control so many aspects of our person's life, an ADHD diagnosis can shift the balance of power by now enabling him or her to start taking control of the condition. There's no cure for ADHD, but as I've already indicated, there are tried and tested ways to manage it. Once diagnosed, prescription medication is usually the first line of defense in doing this. Sadly, it does not seem to work for absolutely everyone, but in very many cases it can produce dramatic results. Rather than to simply mask the symptoms of ADHD, the most commonly prescribed medications are able to actually correct or compensate for the condition's underlying biological causes. However, they do the job only for as long as the person with ADHD continues to use them. It is advisable that a potential user of this line of treatment discuss with his or her doctor the pros and cons of the various prescription options. Finding the best medication and dosage for a specific person may involve having a medical practitioner guide him or her through a process of trial and error until a satisfactory combination can be found. Also, it is important to make an informed decision about what to take and what not to take, not least because there are possible side effects to be considered, and because should a person later wish to stop using the medication, he or she may well experience some difficulty with its withdrawal. Then there's a range of medical interventions that may be adopted in conjunction with medication, in combination with each other, or simply as standalone treatments. More than anything else, ADHD is a disorder affecting a person's self-control. Although medication is usually the first and most effective form of treatment, someone with a condition can neither simply depend on a prescription drug, nor even depend on another person to structure every aspect of his or her life. For this reason, independent work on the various issues surrounding ADHD is also usually needed. One can, of course, navigate the self-help route alone, but a combination of the support and the various treatments we're about to look at can be of particular benefit to a person who is setting out on this challenging but potentially rewarding journey alone. And because the condition can be a lifelong frustration for many, they might also well be of help to an intrepid ADHD veteran. The first on the list of non-chemical options is some form of psychotherapy. After a lifetime of being put down, of finding it difficult to cope, and of feeling somehow lacking as a person, developing a more robust self-image along with a healthy dose of self-compassion can make a significant difference to a life with ADHD. Here, therapeutic hypnosis, along with a more traditional psychotherapy, might go a long way to normalize the condition and help establish a positive, self-accepting emotional base upon which to build a more satisfying life. Of course, depending on the person, deeper issues and comorbid conditions might well also need to be addressed, but often the immediate goal would be to simply improve the person's sense of worth, self-esteem and enjoyment of the world. In addition to such objectives, therapy can serve to support very practical changes in the way a person with ADHD functions and manages his or her performance, relationships, and emotional stability. Because clinical hypnosis, psychotherapy, and coaching may all involve forms of behavioral work or behavioral therapy, there can be overlap between them. For this reason, I'll put coaching next on our list of interventions. An ADHD coach is able to help a person develop the sort of structure necessary to be effective on a day-to-day basis, get things done more efficiently, and stay focused on his or her longer-term goals. In a very practical and bespoke way, the coach is able to target the sort of core issues that people with ADHD are likely to experience. They might include such areas of concern as time management, organizational ability, and interpersonal skills. In this way, a coach can help a client become better at maintaining a healthy lifestyle, better at managing finances, better at forming and sustaining good relationships, and more successful at work. For many, the developing of the skills necessary to achieve these important outcomes, along with the support and the guidance of an empathetic coach to whom he or she needs to answer, can set a person with ADHD on a new trajectory that is likely to make a significant difference to his or her life. Then there's the practice of mindfulness, which of late has become something of a buzzword. And indeed, mindfulness can be of great value to someone with ADHD. We've seen that an untreated person might well feel at the mercy of scattered thoughts and a lack of focus. A mindfulness practice can to a large extent remedy this distressing aspect of the condition by providing a person with a learned mechanism to repeatedly bring a wandering mind back on track. With some training and persistence, such a technique can become embodied and therefore more or less automatic. A mindfulness practice might then go on to provide other valuable benefits. It can, for example, help one instill a habit of pausing before responding to a given thought or other impulse, and so reduce the effects of ADHD impulsivity. It can ground one by helping one live more in the present moment than one might otherwise manage to do. And it is proven to be effective in the management of such conditions as stress, depression, and anxiety, all very common difficulties that tend to be all the more common amongst those living with ADHD. Next on our list is fitness training. Physical exercise is yet another highly recommended activity in the management of the condition, and arguably a no-brainer for someone that anyway finds it difficult to sit still for too long. A study recently published in the Medicine and Science Exercise Journal informs us that people with ADHD will benefit from just a single bout of exercise. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it found that ongoing training could help with stress reduction, mood management, and cognitive functioning. However, those unused to physical activity who might now wish to begin such a training program should proceed with some caution. I suggest that they start by having their fitness levels assessed by a fitness professional who will then be able to design a bespoke routine for them, taking into account their particular preferences, abilities, and fitness goals. Lastly, because peer support can be invaluable, it makes sense to join an ADHD support group. If there happens to be one that meets near where you live, then that is likely to be a good option. Alternatively, I encourage you to join one or more of the online ADHD support groups that are formed on such social media sites as Facebook and LinkedIn. Only do be sure to check out what advice may be given there, particularly if it's coming from an unqualified person or from someone with a self-serving agenda. As a person with ADHD, it can come as a relief to discover that one is not alone and that there is no need to feel isolated. It's so important to remember that satisfying social connections can play a crucial role in our mental health and in our sense of well-being. Receiving an ADHD diagnosis can mark a real turning point in a person's life. It can provide comfort in the discovery that past patterns of behavior and so-called failings might simply have been the result of a common neurological condition, rather than because the person has been defective in some unexplained way. For the first time, it can shed light on why the individual might have experienced the many frustrations and difficulties he or she will have repeatedly come up against. And it can provide both an opportunity to devise a plan to manage the underlying condition and a renewed hope of turning around a life that is yet to realize its full potential. But generally, people with ADHD have always known that they are in some ways different. Although there are various aspects to the condition that can make it hard for them to function effectively in a non-ADHD world, they're also very likely to display intelligence, affability, determination, diligence, resilience, and a particular ability to solve problems. In other words, the very qualities necessary for one to do well in life. It's my opinion that ADHD support should be designed to work with and build on a person's strengths, rather than to attempt to change him or her into a person that is neurotypical. My mixed discipline practice offers adults with the condition a bespoke program of such support. It sets out to work alongside a client's medical treatment and is tailored to meet his or her specific needs, location, and budget. The tools it employs may include talking therapy, clinical hypnosis, mindfulness training, physical fitness training, and of course ADHD life coaching and support. If this service is of interest to you, please do contact me to find out more. I live and I work in London, but for those based further afield, I also work online. Having myself been diagnosed with ADHD at a relatively mature age, I've become both keen to promote an awareness of this difficult and often hidden condition, and keen to be of support to those experiencing its frustrations on a day-to-day basis. For this reason, irrespective of whether or not the person may be considering using the support my practice can provide, I'm pleased to offer a free, confidential, no-obligation 30-minute coaching call. This is open to any adult who has or who believes he or she may have ADHD. Please do take advantage of this by sending me a message through my website, christophernorris.co.uk, by emailing me using inquiries at christophernorris.co.uk, or privately through one of the social media sites I use. In the meanwhile, stay well, stress-free, and as focused as you're able to, and expect life to be different.